Hello, you guys. Today we are going to be discussing the topic of weight loss and how it has kind of really misguided and misled us when it comes to the subject of health and what it really means to be healthy or live a healthy lifestyle. And honestly, for my entire life, I have always wondered why the topic of weight loss seems to be the number one metric to measure a person's health and happiness, and it seems to be the thing that people really like to focus on. But from what I have observed, and I think you would agree, weight loss or weight in general is, whether you're underweight or overweight, is really simply a byproduct or a side effect of our lifestyle choices or even just dysfunctions in the human body. Yet it is really treated like the star of the show when it comes to health, and I guess that makes sense because it is something that is very visual. A person's weight can be very obvious, and to be frank, it is a perfect depiction of our culture as a whole right now. Completely shallow and completely obsessed with all the wrong things. Just like beauty is now so superficial and is fake everything, fake lashes, fake hair, fake face, everything is just completely manufactured and nothing really seems real. And I think health has become kind of the same when it comes to how people view and how culture frames it. Unless you truly have a really obvious weight problem, it's very unlikely that somebody in your life is going to check you if you obviously have an overly sedentary life, or you have a super duper stressful life, or you clearly have terrible eating habits. And I think this problem creeps into finances as well, because think about it, as long as you look like you're doing well, drive a nice car, etc., nobody's really going to ask any questions. And though I do not want to get off track because we are discussing culture's obsession with weight, I do want to make an important point. I do want to help depict how shallow and superficial it is to use weight as a metric of a person's health status. And of course, it is a side effect and a observable metric of a person's health status, but it is not the number one metric we should be focusing on. It is like trying to judge what someone truly looks like when they have a pound of makeup on and a pound of Botox in their face. Or you're trying to understand the financial status of a person or their financial health, so to speak, by looking at the car they drive. It's a completely superficial metric because we all know people who drive nice cars and have a ton of debt. It's the same thing that I'm trying to point out with the conversation of like weight. How much do you weigh? It doesn't really tell us all that much. The number on the scale, like I said, doesn't mean a whole lot. Even health and weight loss experts know that your fat to muscle ratio, your inflammation markers, your blood pressure are all far more important measurable metrics for assessing your health and helping you kind of decide what type of plan you should follow, not a stupid number on a scale. There is no magic number that if you hit, you will somehow be healthy and thriving. Now, I really want to unpack this topic, so definitely leave me a message below in the comments and let me know what you think. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts. I think we can all agree, hopefully, maybe I'm assuming something, that the topic of weight is definitely complex. You can't actually simplify it to calories in, calories out. As a whole, I just think society has really dumbed down this topic, and I think has really provided an incomplete explanation of the number we see on the scale and even what that number even means and how much we should be obsessing over it when it comes to deciding or even trying to get a feel for our health status. And before I go any further, I want to make a couple disclaimers. One, I'm not an expert, as I say in every video. I am just sharing with you my thoughts on this topic, and this is all my opinion based off of my lived experience and what I have observed with the people and things around me. And number two, if I make any reference to your weight being a side effect of your choices, I do want to specify that I am not talking about children. Childhood obesity is very sad to me, and it is very, very real, and it is obviously not the child's fault. The child doesn't choose the the environment or the circumstances that it is born into. So although weight technically refers to the number on the scale, I do want to acknowledge that when some people refer to their weight, they are talking about their fat to lean mass ratio, or they could even be referring to the shape or composition of their body. Our weight should be a side effect of our choices and lifestyle, and although certainly can serve as a warning sign, excessive weight gain or weight loss is honestly a pretty late warning sign in my opinion. Depending on the factors affecting a person's health and longevity, there are so many other metrics that we should be observing and noticing before we find ourselves in a place where we think we just need to lose weight. And this mindset is terrible for both overweight, normal, and underweight individuals, because for the normal or underweight individual, there is this baked in idea that they are healthy because of the number on the scale or the shape of their body, and that is simply not true. We know that. And for individuals who need to technically lose weight, weight loss should really be a side effect of a lasting change in their life, not the number one goal, because there are so many incredibly unhealthy and short-lived tactics for simply losing weight. Diet scams, calorie restriction, surgical procedures, and now drugs are all ways to temporarily lose weight and are not real solutions that will help people who need to make long-term change. You need to know that these types of solutions have nothing to do with actually helping you become a healthier and stronger person. It is all sold to you as a quick fix and will perpetually keep you chasing a temporary solution. And it keeps the weight loss industry lucrative and you feeling completely frustrated. There are so many underlying health conditions and lifestyle habits that can end up causing you to either gain or lose an unhealthy amount of weight. And that is the point that I really want to drive home. If we put a lot more focus on fixing the fundamentals of a healthy lifestyle, a healthy weight should be a side effect of that over time. And then here are just a few examples of things that could cause an excessive amount of weight gain or weight loss. And this is really kind of what I'm trying to point out in this whole video, which is that simply using weight as a metric of our health status is simply inaccurate and it's not good. There are so many underlying things that we should be, if we want to be a healthy society, be taking note of before a person has either lost too much weight or gained way too much weight. So first we have hormonal imbalances such as thyroid dysfunction. You have all your sex hormones that could be out of balance. We have insulin resistance or excess insulin. We have cortisol. If that is too elevated over time, it could cause excessive weight gain. And then we have your hunger and satiety hormones, gut health, microbiome imbalances. And then we have a lot of medications such as antidepressants, chronic inflammation, sleep quality and duration, psychological factors such as stress, nutritional deficiencies or imbalances. A lack of nutrients could affect hunger, satiety, and even body composition. Then we have genetics and epigenetics. I think there's a lot more research coming out on epigenetics and how we have a lot more sort of control over what type of genes get expressed in our body. And then of course, lifestyle factors such as being overly sedentary or overtraining. When I was a younger girl or a teenager, I would always remember overhearing older or middle-aged adult women. I'm not sure how old they were. Probably for me at the time, I thought they were older. They were probably just middle-aged adult women. They would always be talking about how if they wanted to lose more weight or they wanted to lose their belly fat or they wanted to lose the last 5 pounds, they just needed to stop eating rice, or they just stopped eating bread, or they just gave up their last glass of wine. And of course, those things probably would actually help them lose weight over time. Of course, it could have an impact on their weight. To me, what is sad about that whole narrative is because to them, the whole focus or the whole measure of whether you were healthy or not was your weight. They were just missing out on so many other important things that they could have been focusing on that would have really impacted their health and just how good they felt. Imagine if instead of focusing on weight, they were focusing on maintaining stable blood sugar or providing important macro or micronutrients to their body through their diet. Imagine if they gave up refined sugar and alcohol, not because they really wanted to lose a few more pounds, but because they wanted a healthy brain as they aged and wanted to support their body's natural detoxification process instead of overloading it. Think about how much more motivating exercise would have been for them if they were focusing on feeling strong and feeling good and feeling capable instead of just going down a couple jean sizes. Now, I know what you're going to tell me. What about the elephant in the room? The obesity epidemic in America. Obviously, a huge percentage of Americans are considered overweight. And as much as that is a huge problem, an adult should have multiple opportunities to change their habits and their life before they get to that point. What I'm really trying to get at is that excessive weight is not the problem, it is a symptom of sedentary living, a symptom of consuming food that isn't real food, a symptom of idolatry of digital devices and TV, a symptom of worshiping our temporary comfort over what will actually bring us more fulfillment and health if we are willing to move our bodies more. And particularly for my generation and the generation before, I think there has been a lot of confusion and a lot of focusing on the wrong things. And I think stats don't lie. It is estimated that at least 60% of Americans have a chronic disease and around 74% are considered overweight. So something isn't working even though we obsess about weight. Now, I thought this was a pretty funny headline from 2022. It says here, over 80% of adults don't meet the US strength guidelines. And then this survey is quite telling. It says over 80% of Americans can't manage more than 10 push-ups. And then if we go to the actual source of this survey, it says it was done by gymless.org, and they surveyed 1,403 participants. And here it says, yes, that 53.8% of adults could not perform more than 10 consecutive push-ups. Now, if that doesn't scare you, how about this stat? Only 25% of American adults can run a mile or more without stopping. Demographic factors. Adherence to strength guidelines is lower among older adults, females, and those with lower income and educational levels. I thought this was interesting though, since the percentage of Americans who can, I believe it's 25% of Americans who can run a mile without stopping. Or without needing to stop. It's a very low percentage. But look at this. We have nearly all Americans, roughly 94%, engage in daily leisure activities like watching TV or using social media. Over 50% of Americans watch 3 hours plus of TV daily. About 70% of the US population uses social media. The users average 2.5 hours on social media platforms daily. And then, of course, it talks about screen time, television, combined habits. It says, overall, a vast majority of Americans exceed 1 hour per day threshold for combined television and social media usage. And what's interesting about those stats, if you want to, it's hard to know how accurate they are, but if you want to pretend that they are accurate, is it kind of points out the demographics for fitness levels, like it decreases among women apparently, or their ability to run a mile without stopping, older individuals, or even individuals with an educational or income discrepancy. What's interesting though to me is almost every American, even those who are low income, they all have so much access to TV, social media. I think almost every American, probably even low income, have a smartphone. And so I just think it's interesting if you take a moment, and obviously a lot of people do work on their devices now. And so I'm not really sure how much those stats are accounting for people who are somehow doing some form of work on social media. But I just think it's interesting how even with the demographics being different for fitness levels, like where the fitness levels decline, if there is income disparity or educational disparity, or even among women, the ability for most women to run a mile without stopping is lower than men apparently. I just think it's interesting how the crossover to the amount of time spent on screens or on social media or watching TV, that doesn't necessarily change with demographics, obviously. Or we can assume it doesn't, since most Americans do have access to smartphones. Most everyone I know, no matter their income level, has a smartphone. And so it's just interesting because I think what's so sad is that humans we live so backwards nowadays. Our priorities, our way of living and being normal is all so backwards. And I think that is why we do have such problems with health and with weight in America and in our society today as a whole. And to quickly kind of summarize this whole picture picture, although every generation is different, it seems like the unifying thread throughout is that Americans tend to live more and more sedentary lives. We will continuously keep up bad lifestyle habits like eating processed packaged food, normalizing addictive substances, and always looking for a shortcut and a quick fix instead of doing the right thing long term. And although younger generations seem to consume less alcohol, it seems like cannabis and GLP-1s have filled the gap. And our caffeine addiction seems to become more and more dark as new energy drinks continue to enter the scene and continue to become more and more normalized. So with underlying health conditions worsening with our lifestyle choices, is it any wonder that most Americans are overweight? No, it's not. But it shouldn't be what's normal. We should be able to see that the way we are living isn't good. And we should be encouraging each other to make different choices way before we wake up and find ourselves under-muscled and over-fattened. Now, if you are still here, thank you for watching till the end. I hope this encourages you to think differently about weight loss and weight gain, and to be emboldened to live your life eating real food, getting lots of fresh air and sunshine, getting off the couch and moving your body, getting stronger every year, and start changing how you live each day. And of course, bringing the people around you along for the ride.